Hello fellow steepers and stitchers, welcome. My name is Sarah and in this video I'm going to be sharing two of my favourite seasonal steeps for this time of year. As you can see from my little hat, the Christmas holidays are fast approaching. It is December 2020 and that means that here in the UK, in the Northern Hemisphere, it's winter and therefore hot beverages are an absolute must. However, the very first tea that I am going to share with you today is actually one that can be drunk hot or cold, and therefore you can enjoy it whether you are celebrating the festive season here in the Northern Hemisphere and getting all chilly, having to wrap up warm, or if you are in the Southern Hemisphere and enjoying summer. So without further ado, let's crack on and start prepping our very first tea. So the first tea I'm going to share with you today is quite unusual, I think, for this time of year. The lighter teas such as white and green tea get overlooked around this time of year in favour of the richer dark teas. And that's completely understandable. However, the white and the green teas can actually be really refreshing, and so the first tea I'm going to share with you today is a white tea with mint blend. It's something that I blend at home myself from raw ingredients and I really enjoy it. I use peppermint because peppermint is my favourite type of mint, and I find that peppermint has a really nice clear kind of flavour to it. It cuts through a lot of things. I find spearmint sits in my mouth a little bit too long, and also for me it tastes like toothpaste and I don't want to drink toothpaste. Mint is really good for the digestive system as well, which this time of year can be really helpful. For us here in the UK, it's pretty much roast everything, mince pies, fruitcake, lots of very heavy, rich foods. And so to have something that's a little lighter, cuts through the noise of all that richness, can be really nice. So why white tea? Well, let me tell you a little bit more about white tea. I'm going to read you a little excerpt from this book, Tea, the Drink That Changed the World by Laura C. Martin. So white tea. White tea is the least processed of all teas. Tea made from either the first flush or the bud and one leaf, either air dried or directly warm fired. And warm fired means that the leaves are heated by mechanical means. Leaves that make white tea undergo no withering, no fermentation or rolling, and produce a liquid that is either pale yellow or clear. The best known white teas are Silver Needles and White Peony, although others are quickly gaining recognition. And today I am going to be using White Peony tea. It has nothing to do with the flowers, it is just simply the name of the tea. As you can see, I've lined up my ingredients for these two teas along the wall. So in order to make our first blend, what do we need? Well, we need some white tea. This is my white tea jar. As you can see, a massive jar with now not very much in it. Let me see if I can. So these are actually quite big leaves. Let me see if I can get some out. As you can see, I hope. So here we have the bud, and it has a couple of leaves just on it there. And as you can see, I hope you can see, it's kind of like a little kind of pale silver colour. And that is why some white tea is called Silver Needle. This, is, like I said, is White Peony. What we're going to do, I have my teapot, I have my teaspoon. This is the perfect teaspoon from Bird & Blend. I just love it because unlike a regular teaspoon, it's quite deep, which means that tea doesn't fall off the side. We're just going to take a decent teaspoon of our white leaves. And generally, as a rule of thumb, you want to go for 1 teaspoon per person. So there's just me, so it's just 1. Okay, let's pop that one back. We are going to add half a teaspoon of dried peppermint. You can use fresh mint if you, like me, you're growing mint, but today I'm using my dried peppermint. smells so good. That's a really refreshing smell. And I'm going with half a teaspoon because I don't want to overpower the delicate white tea. So I don't know if you can see, just half a teaspoon there. I'm going to pop that in. Going to take my teaspoon, pop it back. And then we need to prepare our water. Now here's the trick with making the perfect cup of white tea. You want to boil your water and then let it cool. You want to make white tea with water that is no hotter than 80 degrees centigrade. Okay, so I'm going to boil my kettle and then we'll be right back to make some tea. So it turns out it takes exactly 2 rows of knitting time to boil the kettle. Now our kettle is boiled, we need to let our water cool. You can either do this by just letting your kettle sit. What I like to do is pour it out into the cup that I am going to be using. And let it sit in the cup. I find it cools a little quicker, but as a bonus, it also pre-warms my cup, so I have a lovely warm cup of tea. So it takes approximately 2 to 3 minutes for the water to cool down in my cup to under 80 degrees. I do have a little meat thermometer that I've used to just test that theory. Once your water is cool, you can then go ahead and pour it over your leaves. So there we go, water over leaves, lid on teapot, and now we wait no longer than 3 minutes. Do not let your leaves steep for longer than 3 minutes. Once your leaves are done steeping, it's time to pour out that perfect refreshing cup of white and peppermint tea. So I have my strainer. And by using the cup to measure how much water, I have got exactly the right amount of water for the amount of leaves in my teapot for me to have a lovely cup of tea. I highly recommend that you measure out how much water your cups hold so that you too can make the perfect cup of tea. What we don't want is our leaves sitting in our teapot in a layer of water, and then when we come to reuse our leaves, because always reuse your leaves, they've oversteeped and it's just not very tasty. So here we go. Here is my first festive steep of the season. This is white tea with peppermint. I hope you can see it's a lovely kind of light yellow colour. Obviously my walls are yellow, so it kind of gives everything a yellow tinge. But this is lovely, clear, see-through. Going to blow on it a little bit. I'm such a wuss when it comes to consuming hot drinks. They have to cool down. Oh, that is lovely. Lovely. This tea is fantastic as a palate cleanser. So if you've just had one of those big meals, like the leftovers on Boxing Day, and you're just a little bit too full, or you just need something to kind of clear your mouth, clear your palate, this will do it. It's light. You get that hint of mint, just that little hint of mint. Because we only used half a teaspoon, we haven't overpowered the white tea. And white tea is this lovely, beautiful, light tea that just kind of dances. I don't know how else to describe it. This is just a lovely, lovely cup of tea. And if you are making it as a summer brew, If you make it up and then let it cool, so it's completely cold, so you can make it up in the morning and then just leave it to cool. Once it's completely cold, add a couple of ice cubes, and it again is super refreshing. It's a lightly flavored kind of water that yeah, just like having mint water or cucumber water, can be super refreshing, and as I said, palate cleanser. Very helpful when there is lots of food involved in your time and your day. Delicious. So we've made our first tea of the season, but what is the second one, I hear you ask? Well, we're going from the light and refreshing of white tea and mint, and we're going all the way down the spectrum to a lovely, rich Pu'erh based tea. So our second tea is actually one of my favourite teas to make all year round. Well, to be fair, all the teas I make are my favourites to make all year round. The base of this tea blend is Pu'erh, and it sounds odd, but it's really not. It's a delicious tea, and one of the most wonderful things about it is you can brew the leaves multiple times and get multiple cups with a slight change in flavour each time. It's absolutely wonderful. Again, I'm going to read you a little excerpt from tea, just to kind of introduce you to Pu'erh. Pu'erh. One of the most unusual of all the teas is the ancient Pu'erh of Yunnan, China. Some experts date the production of Pu'erh back to the Eastern Han Dynasty, 25 to 220 Common Era. Unlike other kinds of tea, Pu'erh is traditionally made from large older leaves that measure longer and wider than a human hand. Yunnan, one of the earliest tea producing regions of China, is one of the few places, if not the only place, where older trees exist that can produce such leaves. These leaves are covered in fine hair and have a different chemical composition than the younger leaves. Pu'erh is a living tea that, like yogurt, includes many microbes and continues to change and evolve as it ages. These microbes are thought to have tremendous health benefits, including lowering cholesterol and aiding digestion. Again, another good benefit for this festive season. There are two basic types or categories of Pu'erh tea, green and cooked. Green Pu'erh tea is allowed to age naturally. The leaves are pressed into cakes or bricks, wrapped in bamboo or paper, and left to age for several years. Enough moisture is left in the leaves for the tea to continue ferment slowly over a very long time. The bricks are then stored underground for several years to age to perfection. The entire process can take as long as 30 years. The second type of Pu'erh tea is cooked to speed the aging time. Most cooked Pu'erh teas peak at about 15 years. Pu'erh is the only tea that actually improves with age. In the West, most Pu'erh is served in restaurants and the quality is often inferior. A good Pu'erh tea has a clean, flowery taste. It is one of my favourite teas. It gives such a lovely, rich, warm flavour, and it brews to this amazing kind of pinky colour. And for this blend, I like to blend it with a little bit of oolong tea, which is a semi-oxidized tea, somewhere between green tea and black tea. And the one that I like to use at the moment is actually a vanilla flavoured oolong. So it's been naturally flavoured with vanilla, and I find the vanilla just adds a little something to the tea. I'm going to blend it with a variety of spices that are quite traditional for this time of year. So I have cinnamon, star anise, cloves and cardamom. I sometimes add a little bit of ginger, but I don't have any at the minute, so I'm not going to put that in. So we want to start with our Pu'erh. This is my jar of tea. As you can see, it's full because I just topped up. I love this tea. Like I say, it is just one of my favourites. It has such a rich smell. It's just lovely. Okay, enough tea sniffing. Right, so let's get to work. I've got my trusty teaspoon. I'm going to go with 1 good whole teaspoon of my base. Perfect. Okay, then I'm going to take my oolong. And this is so cute. Oolong tea is traditionally kind of rolled and curled. And look, ooh, let me see if I can get it out. Kind of like little pellets. And it smells wonderfully, wonderfully of vanilla. I'm going to add about half a teaspoon. So there we go. And that is my tea base. Now comes the fun part. So let's start with good old cinnamon. Cinnamon can be quite overpowering, so you want to make sure that you don't use too much. These are just regular cinnamon sticks that you can buy in the supermarket. Let me see, I already have a broken one. So this is about 1/3 of a stick. What I'm actually going to do is break that in half and use half of that. And then I'm just going to crumble that into my teapot. Then I am going to take my star anise. Now, I know a lot of people don't like star anise. You can definitely leave this out. Some people like to put in licorice instead. I love aniseed. Aniseed balls are my favourite sweets, and I just... oh, the smell of aniseed is amazing. Now, I don't want to overpower my tea, so if you see the star anise comes, let me see if I can find it full, comes like this, so it's actually kind of star shaped. I'm going to use one that only has 2 pods left on it, the others have fallen off. So again, I am just going to give that a little squeeze as I put it in. You can, if you want to, if you have a little pestle and mortar, you can pop all your spices in there, give them a little grind and then pop them in. I just kind of crack them as I go. I'm going to add just a couple of cloves. Again, cloves can be a little bit overpowering, so I'm just literally adding a couple of kind of whole clove heads. In we go. And then I love cardamom in black tea. It's amazing. One of my friends introduced it to me and now I can't get enough of it. And I love the kind of the warmth it gives to a brew. So I am just going to take a couple, just 2 little cardamom pods. Again, just going to give them a little squeeze, kind of break them, crush them a little bit as they go in my teapot. And then I'm going to boil my water. Now for this brew, we want fresh boiling water, so no waiting for it to cool. So I'm just going to pop my kettle on, get a few little stitches in, and then I'm going to pour that straight into my teapot. My water is freshly boiled, so I'm going to pop it into my teapot. Again, making sure that I don't put too much water because I don't want to leave those leaves sitting at the bottom. Now my water's in. I'm going to pop the lid on and I'm going to leave these leaves to steep for a good 5 minutes. This is a black tea, it's very rich, it's very full. So 5 minutes is going to do it no harm whatsoever, and that's going to let all those lovely spicy flavours come to the fore. And so my tea has been brewing for about 5 minutes now. It's time to pour it out and see the results of all that patience. Have my strainer. Here we go. Now, look at this beauty. Lovely dark red. And interestingly, in China, black tea is actually known as red tea because it doesn't brew black, it brews red. And I just love, this tea is so aromatic. The first time you ever try Pu'erh tea, there's a slight tang kind of to the smell of it, and it does take a little bit of getting used to if you haven't tried it before. It may seem quite odd. It's also very easy to overbrew it. So you want to make sure you use fresh boiled water around about 5 minutes, and you don't put too much in. It's because it's got such a strong taste and smell. If you put too much in, then you're going to end up with an overbrewed tea. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Lovely and warming, really just, Oh, it's cozy. This is a cozy tea. Oh. Now, because I used a vanilla oolong in this tea, there is a little trick you can do which really brings out an almost caramel-like taste, and that is to add a little splash of oat milk to it. You can use other types of milk, but animal-based milks, so your cow, sheep and goat's milk, they have a protein in them called casein, which actually binds to chemicals within the tea, and they don't then unbind, and it actually negates a lot of the healthy properties of tea. Whereas plant-based milks do bind to elements within the tea, but then unbind in your gut, and therefore you get the best of both worlds, a little splash of milk in your tea and the health benefits of your tea as well. Adding a little splash of milk to this particular tea brings out some of the caramel kind of notes in there. And as I said earlier, re-steep your leaves when you're ready for your next cup. Now, I brew these teas myself at home from an array of kind of base ingredients that I happen to keep in the cupboard. You, however, may not want to keep all these ingredients, but you may want to try blends that involve these teas. Whilst I haven't found these exact teas available commercially, Bird and Blend Tea, based in Brighton, do actually produce a white blend tea which is relatively similar, and a Pu'erh based blend tea which again is relatively similar. I'm not sponsored by Bird and Blend. This is not an affiliated video in any way, shape or form. It is just simply I have had their teas before. They've always been very good and I've always had good customer service from them. For me, I get my raw ingredients from the Kent and Sussex Tea Company. Again, not affiliated with them. They're just, for me, good quality ingredients that I can buy at a reasonable price. And again, I've always had good customer service from them. So I will include links to those places in the description down below. Whether you are celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, Yule, winter solstice, or absolutely nothing at all, I would very much like to offer you the compliments of the season and wish you a very merry steeping.